Before we get started today, I want to say thank you for every single like, comment, recommendation, and a very special thank you to my listener support group. If you like what we do here at Off the Deep End Podcast, please consider checking out the listener support tab on our channel's anchor link. Without you, we would not be able to continue the great work we're doing with these conversations, breaking down boundaries and helping heal each other by sharing our stories, our trials, our tribulations, and how we process them. Let's jump straight into this episode.
Are you thinking about making a podcast? Spotify has a platform that lets you make one, and if I can figure it out, you definitely can too. You can create your own content all in one place for free with zero hangups and even earn money as soon as you get started. Spotify lets you record and edit episodes from your phone or computer so you can go mobile, just like I enjoy to do. My favorite thing about it is that you can create video episodes if you wish and upload them to wherever podcasts are heard. You can even set up subscriptions or, if you're like me, listener support options for listeners to help you grow. I 10 out of 10 recommend the Spotify for Podcasters app. Or, why don't you just step over to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your own podcast. What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Deep End Podcast. I am joined today by Miss Teresa, and I'm so excited to do this. She had a time travel to be here with us today, so it's over Zoom as always. All the way from Texas. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Excellent, excellent. Well, why don't we start with the most important part of the foundation of who an individual is? What was your childhood like?
My childhood, I was actually raised by my grandparents. So I was very lucky that my maternal grandparents took me in. I was actually, my grandparents were divorced. And so they ended up having one set had me during the week, and I called them mom and dad. And then the other set had me on the weekends, and I called them Grammy and Papa. Sadly, mom and dad aren't with us anymore, but Grammy and Papa are, and they're still very, very active and very in my life and in my son's life. So I'm very thankful for that. I was really fortunate in that situation. I was orphaned at 2, and so they took me in, and I really didn't know any different for a long time. And I'm very grateful that I got raised by, I think I would say, an industrious generation, because people back in the day, like my grandfather's probably the most gangster person I know, and so is my grandmother. And um, they're just hardcore people, but really faithful. And I'm thankful that I had such strong people to help guide me through life.
Yeah, I think it's very essential to have people you can latch onto and take values from, whether it's what to do or not to do. There's plenty of lessons to learn at a young age. How did that help you going into your teeny years, your high school years?
I think that it gave me, in some ways, it made it hard for me to connect with people my age. So I ended up always making friends with people that were an older generation of people. But it did help me as far as, like, I had an amazing work ethic. I've been working since I was probably 14 years old, and I would pick up extra work. I started doing wedding coordinating, like assistant wedding coordinating at 14 at my church. And then as soon as I turned 16, I started working full time at Buffalo Wild Wings. But I started out as a hostess, and then I worked my way up, and I would work 40 hours from 16 on through high school. And I say I had a lot of loyalty to working. I have a really bad problem where I'm actually way too much of a workaholic. I usually have more than one job at a time.
Mhm. Yeah, I know tons of people like that, right? It's hard to get rid of the foundation that we create. It's easy to build off of a great foundation as well. So having work ethic, devotion to financial security, being able to take care of yourself, it leads to great things that I think that everybody needs. Financial independence, being able to stand on your own 2 feet. When times get hard, who do you have to really look on, with for help? I look towards myself. My wife looks towards herself, but we're a team, but that's just me. All of my other friends who aren't in stable relationships or aren't secure in where they're at right now, they have to depend on themselves. And they don't have the foundation, it's really hard to develop that in your later years. So it's super awesome that you have, powerful work ethic and the ability to stand financially on your own.
I really am thankful for that, and just the ability to dig deep and have grit with things. So no matter how hard life gets, I know that somehow, some way it's going to work out, and I will make it work out, because that drive to survive isn't in everybody anymore. And so I really just know that I have to do whatever it takes, whether it's for my dreams or it's just to make it to next week or to my next paycheck. I feel like it's truly changed the way that I look at life and how I go about everything I do. So, and then there's values with older people that are different, that are just not around anymore. So those have really changed the way that I look at life as well, and I'm very appreciative of it.
Absolutely. Which ones of those values, really stick out to you the most when you think on it?
Loyalty is a big one. Having really good, true friendships, not necessarily a lot of friends, but people around you, like who you surround yourself with, your environment. Um, Community, I think, is the best way to put it. I think that being able to turn to God is a really big one. I don't think that's really common anymore. Um, Faith was very important in my family, and I didn't always understand it or even really believe it at certain points, but it really helped me to understand that you can be happy with what you have, but not be content and drive forward. So contentment and happiness are not the same. And so learning to differentiate those two and understand it's okay to want more, but also to be good in the space you're in and not make yourself miserable where you don't have that drive to go forward.
Absolutely. Kind of like patting yourself on the back and saying, I'm doing a good job right now, but it could always improve. It could always be better. One of my favorite quotes by a superstar, you might know his name, Greg Plitt, Army Ranger, motivational speaker. He was a huge influence on my life as I grew up as well. And it was just so emotional for me to hear the words, you know, to have the idea say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. It's a flawed ideology. Because, and I'm not going to do his voice anymore because I'm not good at it. But he said that pretty much if you have a system that is workable but could be improved, it might be as good as broke, anyways. So finding constant improvement is healthy. And it really comes down to me personally, how I look at life. What is self-love? Self-love is self-discipline, saying, hey, I can take the easy path, the path of least resistance, and be okay where I am, be comfortable, settle for who I am right now, or I could demand better for myself and love myself more. That's a really, really awesome thing that you were able to grasp from that. I think it's important. Faith as a foundation is huge as well.
Faith is really important to me now, later in my adult years. I didn't always have it. And I think that it has changed my perspective a lot, where I can look back and see why my parents thought it was so important. Um, I didn't always feel that way. And I kind of, for a long time, just didn't like it, the idea of it at all. And when I found it again, things started really falling into place for me. And I think belief in anything really changes the way that you grasp reality. So if you have faith that things are going to work out, whether it's because you believe in a deity or you believe in yourself, it really helps you to understand what you have to do and that you can make it.
Absolutely. And I really do admire that statement as well, because when you look at how we address fitness in general, there's so many different types of fitness. There's financial fitness, spiritual fitness, the physical fitness part, mental fitness, sexual fitness, financial fitness, emotional fitness, all these ones. There's so many different facets that come to the idea of being fit. It's just something you constantly have to work on. Spiritual fitness is something that a lot of people in this day and age don't practice as much. It's not passed down from generation to generation as much. For me, it was huge for me to grow up in the church, to understand appreciation, gratitude, humility, not ever trying to be braggadocious or egotistical, to respect others, to try to learn as much from others as you can. And that foundation was really something that was easy for me to build off of. If I respect others, I can learn to respect myself because they're going to treat me respectfully as well. And it really meant a lot to me to have that aspect of spiritual fitness.
I think that spiritual fitness is really something that as you grow in it, you grow in every other aspect too. Mental fitness, all of it. It's almost like the roots of a tree for me. So when I started settling into that, I started having more respect for myself. I started feeling more aligned with what I wanted to do with my life and like where I was supposed to go. And even sometimes I have no idea where I'm going. I just know that I'm going to make it. It's kind of like that last rep that you're just exhausted and you don't want to do it and you don't know how you're going to do it, but you have faith that somehow, some way you're going to make this goal and you're going to do it. And that's essentially what it is I know somehow, some way I'm going to make this happen. And I know that it's going to take care of itself. And so I end up pushing in jujitsu, or I push in my personal life, or I push with my son to get him where he needs to go. And it's just that blind faith that it's going to happen and I'm going to make sure it happens. And I don't really know how, and I don't even know what tools I need to do it. But somehow, some way, I'm going to get up and we're going to go.
Mm-hmm. And that undeniable faith in yourself, it really can take you to great places. Obviously you're in phenomenal shape. You're a dominant competitor. You have a cutting edge about yourself that shows not just on social media, but in your interactions with others. People talk about you in a great light as well. Um, like if I headed over to your Instagram the other day and I was like, who talks and how do they address her when they speak of this individual? It's always really, really apparent who you are via how people speak about you when they're talking good. People talk bad all they want, right? They're never going to really deliver a message that is lined with the truth ever. So I love paying attention to how others talk about you, about others when I'm trying to figure out what is the next thing in my life. How do I improve? How do I get better? And so me just being a little FNG, a little white belt in this jujitsu journey, right? I try to treat as humble as possible, learn from others, and I look to leaders, natural leaders like yourself who show by example. Competitions, interactions, daily deposits in the bank towards success. I read this really awesome tool, and you might have heard it as well. So the 100 rule. So if you devote 100 minutes a year to others and improving, it's overwhelming the response you're going to have just based on society standards is how well are they pushing themselves. So I kind of amplified that 100 minutes, 100 hours, 100 days. And so I decided that I was going to spend 100 days every single year, at least a portion of it, devoting my time to self-improvement in one category. And if I have too many eggs in too many different baskets, I need to pull back, but at least 100 deposits to every single facet that I'm involved in a year. Do you have any mantras or any rules you apply to when it comes to devotion, energy wise, time invested to these assets as well?
I had to learn the hard way because I am such a people pleaser and I want to make everyone happy. But I learned that if I had goals, I had to be really strategic with them with my time. Your time is your money. And that is a very you statement, but it's a very factual statement. If I am not training, I am making money. I am working. I usually work a full-time job and then two part-time jobs. And then I'm also a mom. And every single minute I have with my son is priceless. So every minute that I give to somebody or that I'm doing something, it is my money. So it's important to prioritize your top 5 things you want to accomplish that year. And that doesn't necessarily have to be different things. It could be I want to win worlds and then I want to be a great mom this year. Um, and I plan things ahead. I got a planner and I made the rule that I do not say yes to anything this year unless I look at my planner and make sure, because overextending yourself for everybody else is not a good habit. You have to take things in moderation. You have to have your rest days. I know that that's not a popular opinion, but when you're in master's class, you need your rest days. Like, I don't care how much you think you don't, you do. And it's also important for your mental health. You have to have time to decompress, recenter, refocus, or you're going to lose the point of what you're doing. You can't work 24/7 every single day and not have a couple of minutes of just peace and stop living your life where all you do is one thing. It's great to do that, but you're going to burn yourself out long term doing that. And so, jujitsu for me isn't something that is short term, it's a life thing. I'm never going to stop doing jujitsu. It's something that makes me happy, I'm passionate about, but what I love about it is it constantly makes me reevaluate any hard things in my life. So I learned because of jujitsu how to prioritize, like, I want to train, but I also want to have time for my friends. And I also want to be a great mom. So I have to really plan out my time. And that's a life skill that nobody taught me. I had to sit there and work really hard to do. Otherwise, you don't
Wow.
accomplish anything.
Yeah. You're absolutely 100% right. I have nothing but agreement towards that. There's something you brought up there that is, I'd love to dive into jiu-jitsu, but I just want to touch on something real quick. You said you wanted to be a great mom. I hear so many individuals say, I want to be a good dad or a good mom. You said you want to be a great mother. And I always look at life with this analogy. If you shoot for the stars, you might touch the clouds at least, no matter what. No matter as hard, if you try as hard as you can, even if you don't get all the way up to the stars, you're at least to touch the clouds. So I know that you're definitely going to be moving towards this with tenacity. Focus on your goal of being present, one, being financially supportive for your child, two, and time balance. Wow, I can definitely improve with my time in life. I've kind of pushed it all into my test that I took today, and so I feel like I put off so many different things. I'm gonna have to. I've been taking notes this whole time, so I'm definitely gonna be writing down some things to learn about how to improve my time management skills. What is the most? Tell me about being a mother. Let's just stop for a second. Tell me about being a mother. What is it like?
I think that my view of motherhood is very different than other people because my son is very special. And yes, he's a special person, but he actually has a lot of special needs. So I feel like it's a little bit different, but maybe it's relatable for somebody. Um, my son is the most important person in my life. End of story. I do everything for him, and I constantly have to be reminded to refocus. If I get a little overzealous because I am such a hard worker, I will forget. I put the blinders on and I forget. And then I have this special, wonderful little person in my life who constantly reminds me to slow down. And he is the brakes, and I'm definitely the gas on life. Um, and I think that God gave me exactly what I needed in life with him. He has pretty severe autism and ADHD. He has a mood disorder as well, and a speech problem. But I think the great thing about not having actual language is apparently like 90%, 96% of all language is nonverbal, which is great because I can just read what he wants most of the time when he's not using language with me. But it teaches you to read people, to be more patient. Motherhood is selflessness to me. And that is the hardest thing for humans to do because we are not inherently selfless. We're very selfish. I tend to say that humans have a main character syndrome. We think we're the only people in the world and that the whole world is about us. But in reality, the person next to us in traffic is just as upset about being in traffic as we are. And my son constantly reminds me it's okay to be 5 minutes late, which I hate. I grew up with people that were like, you better be 15 minutes early every day. And I'm dragging him out the door trying to an hour before. And people on Spectrum just are not good at changing direction. They're just not. And he is a hot mess, but he is my hot mess angel. And so he constantly helps me to refocus on what it is. Because in the day, like a lot of people go into combat sports or anything they do in life and they want to be a winner. I'm already winning. I do jujitsu because I love jujitsu. I'm teaching him how to overcome great things and to push himself and to be better, how to control his own emotions, how to look at life as a problem that he can solve. And that was a big factor of jujitsu for me. But for like being a mom, it's like at the end of the day, whether I win worlds or not, I still come home to the best person in the world. I still get to be his mom. I still get to be the person that raises him. So being a mom is a huge chunk of my life.
Wow. Well, that has got to be one of the most beautiful ways I've ever heard describing motherhood, right? What is the most, amazing impact that we can have on another person to guide them on the right path of this thing called life? I always say it on here, the most amazing currency in this life is the effect you have on others. And you're definitely having an effect on other people just in the way you personally described how you look at motherhood, right? Motherhood is as being a selfless act. It is putting yourself on the complete back burner, the furthest back burner in the back. And I really do want to commend you on that. I think it's an approach that every mother should take and every father should take. Being a selfless parent, your time isn't necessarily done, but your time needs to be better adjusted to support the next person you just brought into this world. And how great would it be if we had nothing but present parents? And I think about all the listeners who reach out regularly to me, a lot of them experience parents who are absent completely. So absent parent syndrome is a huge issue. Nino just talked about it last week. I've experienced a parents not being present and absent and completely not in the picture, and the damage it can do. So I think it's really awesome that you are being a super present mother and devoting your time to your child. I think that's beautiful. What is the reason that you started jujitsu? Because I knew we were going to come to it eventually, so I have to know.
It's actually two reasons.
Okay.
My son was one of them. I actually started jujitsu at a point in my life when I was legally disabled. And then it was also because I was in a headspace after I had gotten really injured that I didn't feel powerful anymore. And this is something that I think is really important for my female listeners, especially that I remember when I was lifting, after I had been injured, I started lifting. I lifted for 2 years. I used to work 12-hour days, sometimes 16. And after my son was in bed and asleep, I would go to the gym that was 24 hours, that was near our house. And I remember some dude saw me going into the sauna and he trapped me in a room full of women in the sauna and was like aggressively hitting on us. And it was very uncomfortable. Like the body language, he was not getting it. And it was very creepy because I think it was around 1 o'clock in the morning. And so I remember leaving after he finally left and all of us just sighing with relief because we were all really nervous because we weren't sure what was going to happen. And I thought, I'm so tired of being powerless. I used to be so confident in myself. I used to feel so strong because when I was in high school, I did wrestling and I lifted and I could squat, I think, over 1,000 pounds. I felt very sure of myself for a 5 foot tall little person. And I felt that confidence is something that's so important for women, especially because when you're somebody who carries himself a certain way, people don't want to approach you as much. They just don't. And that's a good thing because you're not prey. You're not a very obvious prey for someone. And so a couple weeks later, I saw this weird jujitsu ad and I was like, I don't really know about this. I don't know if I can physically do this because at that point, I couldn't even close my hand. I couldn't rotate my elbow at all. I couldn't do anything that I would really need to do for if I wanted to do striking or anything like that. So I messaged the coach and I was like, hey, I don't really know if I could do this, but I want to try. And he's like, no, there's plenty of disabled people that do jujitsu. There's plenty of people who don't even have legs or are missing arms. And I went, all right, I'm going to try it, whatever. And I remember my first class and I went in and I said, oh no, I got to do this. I got to keep trying. And I did.
Wow. Well, that is something we talk about a lot on this podcast is the experiences that we go through and what they drive us towards. I wish with like all of my heart that every single great story of somebody's life started with a positive thing. But unfortunately, there are horrible people in this world who, do seek to prey on others. I've had quite a few of our guests so far have been survivors of domestic violence, survivors of military sexual trauma, and much, much worse. And I'm so thankful for them, sharing your story. But the idea that it is a normalcy, that it's okay to walk up and harass individuals aggressively at all is just completely is a flaw in humanity as a whole. Like I really wish that something, if I could change one thing, it would be make people feel safe in general in life. And that is one thing I wish I could. But I don't have a genie. I can't just wish it away. But if you're listening, and if you aggressively hit on ladies in the sauna around 1 p.m., GFY, go fuck yourself. Get out of here. Just please don't. Right? I really cannot stand it. I really can't. And it's something I see regularly. And it bothers me. And I do say something when I see something because it's important to be advocates for others. And if I'm wrong, if they know each other and they're just joking around, you know what? That's a different conversation. But I'd rather have that one than feel like I didn't, step up and step in when it's time. I think that jujitsu is a great way to be an equalizer, just like a firearm is, but in a different way. You're not removing life. So jiu-jitsu can be a great and powerful tool to regain confidence. I know that for sure. What was it like when you first started?
I honestly made it through my first year, and I definitely have to say this. There is a blue belt that's called Risen. and his name is Joel. And he constantly was like, "Hey, when are you coming back? I want to roll with you." Like he always picked me because we didn't do assigned roles. We would just get picked. And I was always the last pick at dodgeball. I was one of the only girls there. And I really struggled. I was with my arm, I was in constant pain, and I still am actually. I deal with chronic pain, and I don't take anything for it like I'm supposed to. It makes it so I can't function and raise a kid. But it was really difficult because you're learning something that is aggressive with people. I'm 5 feet tall, I'm 155 pounds, and I'm pretty tiny. But you're rolling with like 6'3" guys and 300-pound men, and you're trying to learn something that's very difficult, and it takes a lot of technical skills and also a lot of strength. And then you have a whole thing that you're trying to learn without a whole appendage, a whole arm where you can't grip everything. So my first year was really hard. I would go to work at 7 a.m., drop my son off at daycare, and then I would pick him up after school. I was doing college at that time, and then I was working 2 jobs, and then I would drive straight from that last job to jujitsu at 7 p.m., start my class, get home at 9, make sure my son was in bed and taken care of, pack his lunch, get to bed at like 1 o'clock in the morning after I did homework. And I did that for a solid year and a half. And I trained 5 days a week. I was so determined to do it. And you have to have that drive or you will not make it.
Wow. You know what? The story just keeps climbing and climbing up the hill. It's like that Kate Bush song, "Running Up the Hill." So you're in the midst of going through a very busy schedule, consistent and dedicated training, which is when you get the best training. You always grow the best when you're fully immersed in whatever new thing you got going on at the time. Um, what what are some of the obstacles that you think others would face when they start jujitsu? Because I've heard plenty of different stories about, oh, yeah, I don't think it's for me, or man, this white belt was flailing everywhere and they took me out, and I'm all jacked up. So I try to avoid being that white belt that flails. That's my one goal. Don't flail, and be patient and be humble. Don't get frustrated, and just let myself get completely destroyed on the mat some days, honestly. But it's all part of the journey, right? What are some of the things that you think that people run into when they first begin jujitsu?
I think the two biggest obstacles are actually the same obstacle, which is ego. Your ego with another person you're rolling with, and your ego with yourself. Jiu-jitsu takes a lot of humility. You have to sip on your humble tea all of the time. The humble pie is real because you're realizing that you could essentially outpower someone. But if someone knows what they're doing, you absolutely can't really do anything about it. You have to just let it happen and realize this person who's half your size just beat the crap out of you. And you don't even know how it happened. You're just there taking it. And it's the same thing of being like, so for me, being a female and nothing I do is doing anything to stop someone twice as it's terrifying. And I had a lot of PTSD from things that have happened to me in my life. And so actually like really working through it my first couple of years, it made a huge difference for me to sit there and just take a breath and be like, this is training. I'm in a safe place. I'm going to make it and I'm going to keep going. And then you have to deal with the ego of other people. So like the whole white belt thing is because of ego. We don't want to lose. We don't want to fail. And so it's like I'm just going to do whatever it takes to get my position and show everyone I'm the best thing that ever happened here. You're a white belt. Don't do that. Don't be that person. I had a white belt that had started training for 3 or 4 weeks, kick me in the face. I think it was in 2021. And I got a concussion and I lost part of my vision. So that was pretty bad. And I kept training because I was dumb. And I never learned my lesson. That's one thing I'm going to say is I never learned my lesson with that. But I that's completely just ego. There's
Absolutely.
no reason to be that aggressive with it. Like we don't have to be negligent. If you don't know what you're doing, that's okay. Because everybody that's in a good gym culture wants to help you grow. You're cheating yourself.
100%. And I could definitely, talk about that as well. Specifically, I had Craig Hanaumi. I think he's super awesome guy, man. And he really, really toned it down and really explained it to me. Jiu-jitsu is completely scalable. You could do jiu-jitsu against an 8-year-old and make sure you don't hurt them and make sure they learn it and make sure they want to come back again. So there's no reason to be an asshole, to say, and just destroy that first person on their first day there because you want to check their ego. It's like a give and take, right? They give up a little bit of themselves, and you give up a little bit of yourselves. When I roll with brown belts, I know that Jeff is not trying to break my neck when he puts me in different moves, and I know that when I go against the black belt, they're going to tone it down for me, and they want to see me try to get past their perfectly impassable guard, and they're going to try to outmaneuver me, outpower me with just their legs and keep me and create distance, right? Because legs are great distance tools. But I've definitely been able to understand what Craig was saying when he said that jiu-jitsu is completely scalable. You don't have to be a superstar. That's why there's great courses out there for beginners. And I really have been benefiting from that, from the just what you just talked about, just humbling myself. I'm just here. My cup is empty. Please don't make my jaw any worse because it's already fractured.
Please don't do that.
Yeah, please don't.
And
Please
it's
don't.
like, don't put yourself in bad positions unless you're trying to work a specific thing either. So if you don't know, just sit there and hold tight if you have to, but keep trying new things too. Like it's important to really not make yourself, I'm winning in the same position every single time. You're also going to stop yourself from growing. So it's a lot of balance. And I think what you said about with kids, that's important. I like to roll with my teens and the kids all the time because you have to learn to be incredibly technical because you don't want to squish a 7-year-old.
Yes, 100%. My wife's little brother, he's 11. He puts me through a lot of mental stress as a young, he doesn't have his dad present in his life, so I try to be as present as I can. But oh my goodness, he presses my button sometimes, and I'm so thankful to have that outlet for him. The kids in jiu-jitsu, it can be a great way to learn how to deal with bullies. It can be a great way to fill that gap of not feeling like you have mentors. Someone who's a peer, the same age group as you can be a mentor. People younger than me are mentors. Children are literally mentors in my life. I ask them for advice often and very, very frequently. So it's a really important thing for me personally to have, the youth in my family involved in some form of martial arts. Specifically, I would prefer Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu because they are, very, very applicable to the real world environments and stuff. So do you think that Jiu-Jitsu plays a key role in dealing with bullying for children?
I do. I think more than anything, it helps with self-defense. It helps with buying time. You definitely can really keep someone who's attacking you at bay. But I think it also really helps with confidence. When you have confidence being bred into your children and discipline, they're a lot less likely to have a hot temper where they're just going to flap the handle and put themselves in a bad situation. But also, kids who are confident are going to make friends. They're going to have better situations with their peers, their life. And if they are in a situation where they are being bullied really badly, they do know how to take care of themselves. And I think that that confidence where someone's like, oh, well, I can't just like push this kid around anymore. It really keeps that other person in check of they're not this weak person who's just going to like take it. They're going to stand up for themselves and like, no, this is my boundary. You're crossing it. I'm not going to do this with you.
Hmm. I think it's good to set healthy boundaries. And you talked about that earlier in how you plan your life schedule. You don't sign up for something unless you know that you're going to be able to fit it and formulate it into your devotions to your children. To the idea of you smashing it at Worlds. Trophies are not just trophies, all right? They're life achievements. So anybody listening that thinks it's just a trophy, it's really more than that. Why don't we dive right into that? What is it like competing? The first time for you, what was it like?
I'm going to be honest that I was terrified. I am not a person who likes attention on themselves. I am actually very much so a wallflower. And so being in front of a bunch of people and competing was horrible for me. I was so anxious. And I kept pushing myself because I wanted to work on that part of my life where I didn't care what other people thought. Like I was going to get out there and I was going to do something to improve myself. I still get nervous. I still sometimes cry before tournaments. I'm not even going to lie about it. But now, once I get out there, I just know what I'm doing. It doesn't matter when win or learn. I know that my body's going to take over and I have done all of the work to get there. And I feel very relaxed once I'm actually on the mat with somebody.
I like what you said there, win or learn, because I think that with losing, I wouldn't necessarily even call it failure, because if you show up, you beat 99% of the entire world, 99.5 at least. So I think there's a lot of greatness that comes with just showing up, but the lessons you learn in times where you're not the person on the podium can be great. I would never be as competitive or as driven towards self-betterment if I didn't experience a horrible amount of feeling like I was in second place. And it started with my personal, with my personal journey with my dad not being in my life. Like, why am I not good enough? What is it? And I had to take that chip on my shoulder and kind of file it down a little bit and understand that this is let's let this turn into a competitive standard regularly. So everything I'm going to do my best. If I'm doing it, I'm doing it all the way, 100%. I'm fully immersion. Let's get better at life. Let's not give up on ourselves. And I think there's a lot of lessons that can come with feeling any amount of failure, whether it's bodybuilding shows for me, or something we can both relate on to, fitness, not getting a lift that you really thought you had dialed in, but something was just off. I don't think that necessarily means the whole workout's bad. It just means you couldn't lift that weight right there.
And I think sometimes it is just that. And for me, honestly, winning and learning are the same outcome for me. I genuinely just go right back to the drawing board. I am not a person who sits there and gloats or is like, this was the best day. Like, it was okay. This was today. And then the next day, I'm like, let's not talk about it. Please don't mention it. Don't mention it in class. It's good. We had a good time. I don't want to talk about it anymore. And some of my teammates are like, you did such a good job. And it's like, I would rather just focus on what I need to learn because I'm not where I want to be yet. I have things I want to work on. Um, so I always go back to the drawing board. And I think that that's important because a lot of times people get really full of themselves if they're always winning. You're not challenging yourself enough. Keep going. Like you can be the best, but you still got to learn because someone's going to come out of left field, the unknown person. And that's always really scary too. So I think the people that I see that are doing the best are the people that constantly go right back and are like, okay, this was cool, but I have things I need to work on. I could have done better at this. And they're happy in that moment, but they're still working on that evolvement.
I love that. Absolutely. I think being able to evolve and transform what you got going on right now, transition, or even, Miss Lori just said this on my most recent podcast, pivoting, being able to stop what you're doing and immediately change. Her sharing her story was overwhelming with me, talking about being a cancer survivor and saying, okay, well, I'm never going to be able to have kids. Let's pivot. What can I do to help children that belong to somebody else? How can I help and impact their life? And I think that was beautiful. What is something that you feel that you have done personally when you're to personally impact others around you when you're in the gym doing jujitsu, or whether you're just in life in general?
I feel like the philosophy of, when you read the Bible, people talk about do unto others, you would have them do to you. Something I actually heard a pastor say to me one time was do better than what you would want done to yourself. Because a lot of us have low standards. And I was actually talking to my partner about this last night. A lot of us don't have high standards for what we consider nice or kindness. We're so used to bare minimum or nothing that we accept nothing. And I think it's important to go above and beyond. I think it's important to show grace. I think it's important to give to people, even if they don't like you, even if you don't like them. Because in that situation, you have control of how you treat people, not how people treat you. And so while it's good to have those boundaries with people, like you keep your distance, you don't tell them all your business and stuff. Being kind, being cordial, making sure those people stay on the mat, that is quintessential. That is important to me as a person. Whenever we have a new girl that comes into the gym, I immediately want to be friends. I want their social media. I want to know what they're doing. I want to check in on them. When you come to my gym, you are part of my family. If I meet you, you're part of my family. So yesterday I picked up my friend Darcy from the airport. Darcy and I have met twice in person. She lives in Idaho. She came to my gym one time and I was like, we're going to be friends forever. I'm just going to let you know that I'm here to hype you forever. And that is something that I truly believe in, especially with women in my sport and art, is we are 5% of jujitsu. And it's not a matter of we should just be kind to people. It's a matter of we need to be kind to each other, or there's no competition for us. There's nobody. There's like 35 white belts in a bracket for most of my competitions for men. But then for women, there's like one girl. I don't want that. I want more. I want people to come and train. I don't want to rob somebody of that. So I think to answer your question, I really try to give people an environment that is better than they expect and to treat people better than they treat me.
And that's really awesome because what would a gym be without a foundation? The foundation of every gym is the people that show up there. So if you're creating a cultural environment, right? Something that is like real, it's tangible. I'm going to show up every Friday, roll as hard as I can. I'm going to get beat to shit. And then next thing I know, I'm going to smile and sit and just talk about the week with this person who means the world to me because they didn't choke me out when they knew they could have. So that is one of my highlights, right? And that's one of my personal highlights. That foundation, the family feeling, the camaraderie is something that the veteran community specifically could use a lot more of. So when I talk to my veteran buddies, I say, hey, go start jiu-jitsu. Find it, go, don't stop until you find a spot. Start jiu-jitsu, be around these amazing individuals because it takes a lot. I'm not going to pull punches here. It takes a lot to show up every day and try to improve when it's really hard, when you're out of breath, when you haven't been cross training properly, when your diet's off, when you drank too much the night before, and the person and the person who's half your size or twice your size, in my perspective, is choking the life out of you just by laying on top of you, and you can't move them because you're gassed out. There's so many powerful lessons to learn from having a good community and showing somebody love after you train with them. And also for the guys out there, because if they're listening right now, I want to let you know that it's essential to roll with everybody regardless of their gender. Just do it. And don't try to overpower people or just be extremely violent or elbow people on purpose like an asshole would. Just give them the space to grow with you. And especially if they're new and a white belt like me, because I need that. I need space to grow. I need you to scale it down. Sometimes I also need you to scale it up when you think that I can't. And as a jiu-jitsu practitioners, they're able to, kind of scale that and gauge how hard they're going. I think one thing that was difficult for me was seeing somebody be uncomfortable rolling with me because they were nervous that I was going to, you know, not be a good rolling partner and hurt them. And it's this lovely 16-year-old girl, and she'd been practicing jujitsu for about 4 years now, but she took a couple years off. And she was really unsure at first. And I told her I was unsure too. And we're gonna figure this out together because that's what it's about. It's about breaking down your boundaries and learning and growing with others. I don't know all the rules. I can't even name 10 different shows. Can't even do it. But I'll tell you what, I can learn from her because she knows them all. And I think that's where it comes down to that community factor as well. I'm really going to take a leaf out of your book and start be more kind to others and link with them on social media because I think it's great.
I think networking and getting to know people, different perspectives, different walks of life really teaches you a lot about yourself. Something I love about Double Five is how great our culture is. Everyone's checking on me. So Monique is one of my favorite people in the world, and I don't think I would be competing at all if I hadn't met her. Monique is a world champion black belt, but she, without that, is an amazing person. So if I have like a depressive episode or something, which life gets heavy, that happens to a lot of people, and we just don't talk about it. Um, and I have a lot of weight that I carry on my shoulders all the time. When I had my concussion, it was giving me really bad side effects from it. And she was checking on me. She never judged me. She offered me grace. She wanted to know what she could do. Her husband and her, Rodrigo, um, offered to help me move. My professor Formiga asked to help me move when I had to, because I'm a single parent. So like I didn't have anybody at the time to help me with my stuff. It's been like that since I started. And the guys that I train with are amazing. They're so supportive. They always want to roll with me. No one's ever like, I don't want to roll with her or she's weird. It's always like, man, it's like rolling with a snake. It's horrible. Like she's gonna torture you. And it's great because when you have people that surround you that truly believe in you and your potential, and they help grow and cultivate that in you, and you get to be part of that for them too, it's you're gonna be so much better than you ever thought you could be. And so I think that community, especially in a gym, is what makes it really special with jujitsu because I meet people from all over the world. I meet girls from all over the country, and I love that networking part of it because I constantly see a different part of life. I constantly see a different perspective, and it's like, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I think about my life this way? It's getting out of your skull-shaped kingdom and really putting yourself out and like, oh, my life is not the only perspective.
So one of the most important parts that I've learned, through just my jujitsu journey so far is obviously respect, humility, being patient as well, not rushing. Do not be the white belt who flails. Okay. There's no flailing. I'm gonna have to make a sign for Kindred Jiu-Jitsu up here that says no flailing zone. So what is some of the lessons that you learned as a white belt that you hope others do as well?
I learned to be really humble. You are definitely, I think some people, especially if they're bigger, can feel really overconfident with smashing everybody, but to learn to be as technical as possible because once you start moving up, weight is only so much. It's actually momentum for you to get thrown around even more so. I learned to be patient as my belt came. I think I spent 2.5 years as a white belt, and I watched a lot of people past me and past me as in they moved different in their journey than I did.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean they're surpassing your technique or they're your place. And to be happy for people, I think that's a big one. Is we get so focused on ourselves that we forget to be happy for the people. This other person has been training less than me and they got the purple. Good for them. Good for them. You enjoy that competition level. I am proud of you. I'm gonna be over here being a hobbyist, living my best life, enjoying my blue belt. Yes, I want it at some point, and I'm going to get it, but right now, I got some things to focus on, and it's okay to be happy in the moment. It's okay not to have a stripe when the other person does. I've noticed a lot that sometimes stripes are just for people that are really insecure about where they're at, and it's okay to not get stripes. But it's great when you do know that you're going somewhere too. And I think that's amazing because that growth is so important. And I know every professor is different, and I love that too. My professor doesn't believe in stripes, and I'm happy with the journey that I'm on. But I also like there. I think everyone has those times where like I really suck. Like there's no way I'm gonna ever get to the next belt. Like these people just demolish me, and then I have to sit back and go. I used to think that when I was a white belt. I used to think that when I just started, and I know that there's a lot of people that are brown belts and black belts are like, how did I even get here? And make this level and they're getting their stripes and I'm like I don't even feel like I'm progressing, but you are because people see you, they see that you're doing it, and it just doesn't always feel like that.
Mm. Absolutely. I could definitely relate to that. Before jumped into jiu-jitsu, I started with taekwondo when I was a child, and I ranked up really, really fast, probably because my stepdad shelled out as much money as he could at ATA taekwondo for the testing because you advance based off of testing. So if you show up to the testing, you pay your fee, you're probably going to get like guaranteed to get a belt upgrade. And then I was able to start sparring with the other the big kids. I was just young. I was like 11, and I was able to spar with the green belts, the purple belts, and the black belts, and getting worked as much. It felt good. It feels good to do difficult things in a triumph, and maybe even just go through that trial, that mental trial. Can I do it? Can I get past his guard? Can I get past her guard? Why am I choking? Why is she choking me? How did I get here? I should have phoned a friend. All the amazing lessons that you get when you're in these compromised situations. I think there's so much that you can benefit from, and it applies to everything outside of jiu-jitsu as well. What are some of the lessons that are completely you're able to personally transcribe into life lessons outside of jiu-jitsu?
I think a big thing is everyone always comments about how calm I am during combat and roles, and that's actually something that applied outside of my life too. I learned that if I just take a minute and breathe and really break down the situation and improvise versus panicking, that I can solve things so much better. And then I always leave class and go, I just rolled around with a 250-pound man and did just fine. If I can do that and handle myself, then I can handle anything else in my life. There's really nothing. The fact that I'm doing this every day does transcribe in everything that I do because I decompress. I take that hour of time for myself, which I do want to say, like, being selfless is really important, but it's important to refill your own cup. So jujitsu also helps me to decompress, refill my own cup, and go, all right, I can be the best mom for the next 23 hours of the day. And I think that's important too, is learning how to fill your own cup up yourself and go back and to the drawing board where you're doing the grind.
100%. And I think there's so much that you can benefit from when you look at your life and saying that I filled my own cup. I don't know enough people who do. And I personally see their struggles not taking care of themselves because they get scatterbrained, they get overwhelmed with life. And that was me the last probably month or so. So I definitely can understand the benefits of refilling your own cup. Not everybody has a great support team where they're able to do that, and they have to, it's essential to be able to articulate your actions towards yourself when it comes to self-love, which is self-discipline. So saying I'm not gonna do this, I'm not gonna go out and drink tomorrow knowing damn well I have a test in the morning. I'm not gonna go out and go crazy and just relax even though I got to show up to work tomorrow. I don't want to be hungover. I'm in a life or death job. Me personally, my job is life or death. I make one mistake and I or somebody else loses a limb or life. It is what it is. And it's important to be able to devote, for me to personally, to devote my actions, my intelligence, my integrity, my intent, especially towards self betterment. Who are some people that have had a significant impact on you in the jujitsu world?
I definitely feel like my professors have. Formiga is amazing, and he's kind of like a big brother father figure to me. I always want to make him proud, and I like that I'm growing to have a little bit more of his style, which makes me happy. But it's also the way he treats people. Like Formiga knows everybody. He's like the Godfather. It's crazy, and I love the way that he treats people. I love the way that he is respectful to everyone. That he pays attention. He after a little bit he remembers everybody's name and he sits there and watches you. I it's important to know that someone cares about your development. And I think that he embodies that where he knows all of our styles, he cares about how we progress, and he'll sit there and pair you with people that genuinely are going to be that iron sharpens iron for you. This person's good at this person's good at this, they need to work on this, and this is the best person for you. And, Monique has been great for me on and off the mats. I think that Rodrigo's been the same. He yells at me a lot, which is great for me because I know that he does it out of love. And then I just bring him baked goods and hope he's better. um, he has a huge sweet tooth. It's hilarious. But I love him. He's a wonderful professor. And then I think Joel is really important to me too, because I don't think there were lots of times I wanted to give up my first year. And I try to do that with people in my life at my gym too. I think it's important to have your baby chicks. You pick your white belts or your lower belts that are your babies essentially, and you're like, all right, I need you to come to class. Why aren't you at class? I need you to work on this. And you give them a pep talk and you let them know it's okay to have a bad day. It's not okay to think everything's a bad life. Like we're gonna get through this. And like Joel always told me, just because you're a lower belt doesn't mean that you aren't helping me grow and you're not important. And there were so many times where I was getting outpowered and like guys were trying to show me how much stronger they were than me and how much better they were. And he's like, no, women are technical. Women are always usually more technical. So you're just as important to be here. Because there were plenty of times I just didn't feel like I could do it. And having that person who cares enough to do that really makes a big difference in your life.
That's phenomenal. I'm so excited that you have these people around you that are, able to create that family setting. I think it's essential to have a family identity associated with every single gym where it comes to, just plain old fitness, jujitsu, Muay Thai, every single thing. I think it's really important to have that community. But behind every community is powerful families who believe in each other, who support others when they don't feel like they can support themselves. And I think that's where you are the best. One of my favorite quotes is, I'm not having a bad day. I'm having a character building day. Have you had any character building days?
I've had so many. I couldn't even tell you one in particular. I've had so many where I just And I'm like, okay, well, I'm terrible. I'm gonna go home now and cry. I think one time I cried in the locker room because I just got the crap kicked out of me the whole time. And then I sat there and went, okay, I got beat up by people who have trained a lot longer than me. And if I'm not tapping, there's a problem here. This is important for me to grow. And so I started looking at it differently as if I'm not challenging myself, if I'm not getting tapped out, I actually want to get tapped out in training because that means I'm A, trying something new, or B, I'm with people who are better than me. And I learned not to make that mistake, which I could make in comp or I could make in life. And so I started really trying to just experiment. Like I'll spend a time refining my actual game, and then I'll spend a couple of weeks where I'm trying new things that are really difficult or not my game and get tapped out all the time. And it's like I have such a distinct privilege to get my ass beat.
Wow. You know, I definitely have had days like exactly what you're talking about. I didn't expect me to show up. I'm going to be a little bit transparent too. You're being honest. I'm going to be honest. My first week, I was so excited. Oh, jiu-jitsu. I've been waiting. I just came out of tearing my labrum and the ligament that supports it. I can't wait to start jiu-jitsu. I waited 6 months. I hit the sheepdog response shooting course and I couldn't do anything because my left arm was pretty much dead. I couldn't even hold 5 pounds with it. And now finally, after months and months of training, rehab, and all the things, I'm ready for jiu-jitsu. I'm going to go to 9 different classes and sessions in this first 7 days.
No.
Shouldn't have showed up to the advanced class by accident. I walk in, I'm like, hey, no one's here yet. Why is nobody on time? Turns out they show up when they want to show up, and when they show up, they show up. So there I was getting put in very, very compromised positions, getting thrown over somebody's body onto my back, having people move very quickly and put a lot of pressure, especially on my jawline. My jaw's messed up right now. So putting pressure on there immediately makes me unable to move my mouth at all. And so all I was doing is getting stuck in jaw compromised positions. I got, I cannot tell you how many times I went into fight or flight mode, just all natural, regular fight or flight mode. I'm not going to survive this. Everything's going to freak out. And I had to do my deep breathing exercises while I was completely getting choked out with my own arm. And I think that it's essential to set healthy boundaries, especially when you start something new. You don't have to fully just try to hang out underwater for as long as possible when you immerse yourself into a new sport or a new factor of life or a new relationship with a new friend or anything in life. And I really did learn a lot from that experience. I should not have shown up to the advanced class because those brown belts are vicious. Oh, I learned a lot. Mm.
I think it's also important to go into something new and understand you don't have to be great at it. You never have to be great at it. You can love something passionately and be terrible at it. And that's just as good because it makes you happy. And so your first couple of years, you're just going to have to get used to, I'm really terrible at this and I have no idea what I'm doing. And even if you have that natural athleticism or that natural knack for it, there's still somebody who's better than you. There's still somebody who's going to make you go one day like, I don't know anything about my entire life right now. I need to go sit for a minute. And that's okay.
Absolutely. I did some actually, I've never done this before in my whole life, but I tried it. I went and I looked on the location of Kindred Jiu-Jitsu here in Edmonds, and I saw some of the people who show up. I never realized how great, amazing, and powerful the ladies at this gym are. You have competitors that are doing things where they're rolling and they're also doing open palm strikes on their opponent. I didn't even know that was a thing. So this is new to me. It's that's very awesome and intriguing. It's also very, very overwhelmingly powerful to observe others in a place where they feel comfortable. They're a completely different person when the switch gets flipped during competition time. What's it like competing for you?
I hold on a second.
So what's it like competing for you? When you're going up against an opponent where you're not sure, do you get nervous still to this day? Do you feel more calm? Do you feel cool, calm, collected once you start? What's it like?
I definitely feel more level-headed now competing when I get on the mat and I focus on just controlling my game. You never know with another person what you're going to deal with. I know that some people do a lot of research on their opponents, and that's cool, whatever, because the videos that are out there, you never know if they've evolved. You never know if they do something completely different. And a lot of people do from year to year truly change. Like some people go straight to only guard, some people go straight to stand up, and that's great. It's great to know what you're going to deal with, but it's better to know to not know and go into the unexpected and be prepared for whatever is unexpected because then you have that shield defense. If you control how you play the game, that's really the best way course of action. If I know how I'm going to do what I'm strongest at, what I'm best at, I can go into something confidently. It doesn't really matter what the other person's great at or does. It doesn't matter what they're ranked. I'm not going to sit there and psych myself out about it. So I sit there and actually enjoy the process of it. And if I make the first move, that's like doing the first punch in a match. And that's what I want to do. And from then on, once I'm on my back, I'm happy. I'm good. I don't care. There's nothing nobody else is going to do that's going to stress me out once I'm full guard.
Absolutely. So, what is one thing you would tell yourself if you listen to this episode a year from now? What is one thing? What is one egg that you're going to leave for yourself? A time capsule.
That I'm grateful for the opportunities of unexpected things. I am happy that I did a podcast. I never thought I'd do a podcast. I'm grateful that things don't always work out the way I thought they would because I didn't get to go to Pans. I got injured really bad this year. And I'm thankful that life has led me here and that I need to remember that when I'm super busy next year with everything on my plate, that it's just a process and I have to enjoy it. And whether I get stripes or I don't, or I get another belt or I don't, I'm still progressing because I started here. And a year from now, I'm going to be a completely different person with a different game.
And my last question for you is this: what is one thing that you would do different when you first started your jiu-jitsu journey?
I'm thinking I I wish I had been I wish I'd had more time to study. I wish I'd made more time to study videos and more technique instead of doing what I was trying to make myself into a cookie cutter version of the professor I had at the time. And it really affected my growth. When
Mm.
I stopped and I sat there and decided, I'm built for this, I'm better at this, this is something I naturally do, is when I really started getting better at jujitsu. You have professors that want you to be just like them. And then you have professors who want you to be the 2.0 version of them, which means you're going to be different. You're going to be, you're going to excel at other things. You're going to grow and be your own person. And when I saw how my game was completely different than anybody else's, even in my own gym, is when I started really just being my own person and excelling and being happy with jujitsu. I loved it.
Wow. Well, I do love that for you. I think there's so much power that can be taken away from the things you shared today. One thing I would say about you is off the rip, just hearing about how you discuss your life lessons, how you talk about your son, how you talk about who you want to be in the future, how you talk about your goals, your aspirations, the life lessons that you've learned through jujitsu and outside of it as well. It's easy to tell that you're a strong individual, mentally, emotionally, and physically. Um, I say this fully understanding that it takes a significant amount of difficult downtimes to appreciate the ones that are up high. Without the low valleys in life, we don't appreciate the peaks. So I'm very, very excited for your future peaks, your future success when it comes to competing again. And once you're back at, I would say, I'm not gonna say 100%, but 95% because it sounds to me like you're very, very eager to begin, right? So I look forward to that, and I really do appreciate you sharing your journey, your personal time, um, the lessons you've learned, the ups and downs, the ideology that supports your decisive actions regularly to push forward and succeed. I really do appreciate it all. And I know that everyone tapping in is going to listen as well.
Thank you so much for having me and for wanting to ask questions. I appreciate you listening and trying to dig deep with me. And I am really grateful for the opportunity that you gave me today, even though I was super nervous and I'm having anxiety.
I'm super nervous still. I'm still nervous right now. Damn, and I'm so thankful for it. I think when you're nervous, it only means you want to do something super great, and that's how nervous people are generally good people. Like generally, like all the way around good people because they want to do a good job at whatever it is they're nervous about. And it's natural. It's human nature to want to do good things. So I totally understand.
Well, I'm glad you do. And I'm just very thankful. Thank you so much for having me today.
100%. We're going to have to do it again. I really do appreciate your time. And I am so thankful for each and every one listening. This has been another episode of Author Doom Podcast. As always, please reach out on our Facebook and let's keep this conversation going. It doesn't have to stop here. I look forward to having her on again in the future for an update, to check in and see how it is when she starts competing again. I cannot wait to follow her journey, and make sure to go down a link in the description and follow her journey as she completely crushes it at Worlds and all other obstacles that she walks into. I'm excited. I know you're excited. Rodrigo's excited. Mike is excited. Everybody's excited. So let's keep this conversation going. Much love, y'all. Enough waffle for me. Much love, and bye-bye.